Hello everyone, welcome back. Tom with Capo Fetish. Today on the channel, we're going to talk about 5 notable rock and roll crooners, okay? Before we start, I have a few honorable mentions. We have Ian Curtis from Joy Division, great crooner. We also have Nick Cave. We have Glenn Danzig. And we also have Dave Vanian from The Damned, especially during this period here, the Strawberries period. This album came out in '82. We have a couple of great crooners on here. The song called Life Goes On, just a fantastic track. And another one called The Dog, ending side 1, where Dave Vanian is at his crooning best. And then another notable honorable mention is Barry White, great 70s soul crooner. Here's his greatest hits CD. So let's get down to the top 5 here, the 5 notable crooners in rock and roll. I'm going to start off here with a crooner who can croon, yell, and scream in equal measure. I'm talking about Jim Morrison. I'm going to go over a few of my favorite crooning Jim Morrison songs off each album of the Doors, or at least most of the Doors albums. Start off with the debut here. Love, End of the Night, great slow psychedelic crooning track. We also have Soul Kitchen, and we have The Crystal Ship, the flip side of the Light My Fire 45 back in '67, and also The End, which ends side 2, showing Morrison at his crooning crazy best. From the Strange Days album, their second album, Your Lost Little Girl, you could see where the Frank Sinatra influence comes in on this track especially. Also, I Can't See Your Face in My Mind, another great Morrison crooning track. Off the third Doors album, Waiting for the Sun, a couple of my absolute favorite Doors songs and crooning tracks as well. Yes, the River Knows off side 2, with a great little instrumental passage there from Ray Manzarek and Robbie Krieger. The piano and the guitar, so great. This little jazz thing going on there. We also have Summer's Almost Gone, another great Morrison track. Great crooning on that. Also Love Street as well. So, I mean, he pretty much croons through all the Doors tracks. It's just there's more notable crooners than non-crooners tracks. But these, I'm just highlighting some of the best crooning tracks here from Jim Morrison. How about off the fourth album, Soft Parade, Tell All the People, sounds like something Perry Como would have recorded. Not one of my favorite Doors tracks, but there's other great ones on here. Touch Me is another great crooning track. We have Wishful Sinful, another one of my faves. And then off the fourth or fifth Doors album here, Morrison Hotel, the track's Indian Summer, a track originally recorded for the debut, held back, and it kind of tinkered and reworked for Morrison Hotel. And then, of course, one of my favorite Morrison crooning tracks, Blue Sunday, coming right after Peace Frog off Morrison Hotel. The next crooner is David Bowie. David Bowie, not only is he a great crooner, he can sing so many different styles. I mentioned him in my Chameleon Voice Rock video. Let's start off with some of his earliest works here. From the Pinups album, we got the song originally recorded by the McCoys in America, the track called Sorrow, one of his best crooning tracks. This came out in about '73. I think this is an obligation album here for RCA. Also, off of Aladdin Sane, this may have been where the crooning started for Bowie here on Aladdin Sane. The last track, Lady Grinning Soul. It's also kind of cabaret-ish, but I think this may have been the first time he kind of shed his Ziggy voice, and started crooning a little more here. And this is Lady Grinning Soul off Aladdin Sane. Of course, Young Americans, he goes all soul. A lot of great crooning all over this album. Of course, Fame. We've got the song Win. And kind of an underwhelming version of Young Across the Universe by John Lennon. He's doing a really, really heavy-duty crooning in that track there. We got Right, Fascination. This is where Bowie's voice starts kind of metamorphosing into other types of styles. And crooning is definitely on the top of the list here of this album. But I think this album, more than any Bowie album, has two of his greatest crooning tracks. This is the Station to Station album from '76. Both songs end side 1 and 2. Word on a Wing, heavy-duty crooning, and Wild as the Wind, probably, in my opinion, his best crooning track. Really lays it on thick there at the end of side 2. And then we've got the Heroes album as well. Of course, the title track, Heroes, Sons of the Silent Age. Great stuff here from Bowie. And then our third notable crooner in rock and roll has got to be Morrissey from the Smiths. Especially the first couple of Smiths albums, he's really, I mean, he croons through everything. But there's some particular tracks off of the debut and Hatful of Hollow and Meat is Murder that really highlight Morrissey's crooning abilities. Starting off with the last track on side one, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Another track that's always really, I've always loved this track, but it's like an amazing juxtaposition between like morbid lyrics, crooning, and beautiful guitar work from Johnny Marr. And I'm talking about Suffer Little Children, the last track on side 2, which ends the album. Incredible track. Another one too on this album, I Don't Owe You Anything. A lot of great crooning. And then, oh God, how about this track? Miserable Lie on side 1 of the Smiths debut. He starts off crooning. Second half of the track, he goes full on soprano. I've always found that track really hysterical. I've never heard such intense soprano singing in my life. And that is Miserable Lie off the first debut album from the Smiths. Of course, Hatful of Hollow is full of great crooners. Of course, How Soon Is Now, big iconic track. This Night Has Opened My Eyes, one of my favorite tracks of all time. The acoustic version of Back to the Old House, which kind of has kind of a Bert Jansch acoustic guitar element from Johnny Marr, which is fantastic. Please, please, please let me get what I want. And what else is on here? We've got Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now, all great crooners. I think one of his best crooners, though, Morrissey, of all time, is on the Meat is Murder album, the song called Will I Wonder. Very slow, brooding track on side 2, coming right after Nowhere Fast. And then, of course, the title track, Meat is Murder, and Headmaster Ritual. All great crooning tracks from Morrissey in the early Smiths period. And then here's a guy I think is responsible for most, when you listen to most 80s alternative British singers, this guy I think has had the most influence, even more than Bowie, in my opinion. And that is Bryan Ferry from Roxy Music. And I think he's at his crooning best on the album Avalon. This is the last Roxy Music album. More than this, Avalon, throughout the entire album, he's just crooning like no other. So I think even before this, even the early Roxy Music stuff, I think his voice was very instrumental in influencing so many of those 80s alternative British rock synth bands. So I thought Bryan Ferry has to belong on this list as far as crooners go. And let's face it, when it comes to that 80s alternative British rock synth music, crooning is really at the height of a lot of those tunes, a lot of those albums. So Bryan Ferry, the whole Avalon album from Roxy Music, great crooner album. And then another one is Iggy Pop, right? Let's go back to the early Iggy Pop stuff. Well, let's go back to the Stooges Funhouse record, right? From 1970. I think we first start seeing a lot of this element of crooning in the song Dirt that ends side 1. He's really, he's not really, between Ron Ashton's guitar lines, he's doing a lot of moaning, crooning, whatever you want to call it. He may even started on the first album with the song called Anne, but he's getting more of a low baritone voice on this track on Funhouse. The song is called Dirt. I think one of his most notable crooning albums, though, is his debut, The Idiot, from 1977. From the get-go, Iggy Pop is crooning all the way through this. Sister Midnight, the original version of China Girl, which Bowie later covered on Let's Dance. Fantastic stuff. Mass Production, the last track on the album. Great crooning. Then we've got the Dum Dum Boys, Fun Time, Night Clubbing. And by the way, I don't know if any of you have this CD, but it's well worth picking up. It's a double CD, has the full, complete Idiot on disc 1. And then disc 2 is just a powerhouse performance from the Rainbow Theatre in London in July of 77. Mixing Stooges tracks with tracks from The Idiot, and it is fantastic. Really powerful performance. So this is a great crooning album here from Iggy Pop. We also have some notable tracks here on the Lust for Life album. One track in particular I noticed, while listening to this today is a song called Turn Blue, which is later on in the album track listing. We also have 16, Some Weird Sin, The Passenger, all great stuff here. So these are some examples of some wonderful, fantastic rock and roll crooners. If you have any to add to the list, this is about rock and roll crooners, not old-time crooners from the 40s and 30s, though those were a big influence on these rock stars. So let me know what other crooners you dig in the comment section. As always, thanks for watching. If you dig the content, just press the subscribe button. We'll see you soon, and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.